When you see him with someone else, your mind immediately jumps to conclusions. You assume he's moved on, that he's found someone better, that he's finally happy without you. But that's the illusion, and it's exactly what he wants you to think. People don't move on that fast, not in a real, meaningful way. What you're seeing is a carefully crafted response, a reaction, not a genuine, deep connection. He's putting on a show, hoping you'll believe it. But the truth is, if he truly moved on, he wouldn't need to prove it to you. He wouldn't need to be seen, wouldn't need to make it obvious. That's the first sign that this isn't what it seems. When a man gets into a new relationship right after the last one ends, it's rarely because he's fallen madly in love. It's because he can't be alone. He's filling a space, distracting himself, numbing the emotions he refuses to deal with. This isn't about the new person. This is about his inability to sit with his own thoughts, to face the loss, to process what happened. He wants comfort, validation, an escape from the reality of losing you. But deep down, he knows it's not real. He knows this new person isn't you. He knows he hasn't done the work to truly heal. But instead of facing that, he throws himself into something new, hoping that if he moves fast enough, the past won't catch up with him. And that's the irony. The harder he tries to convince himself he's moved on, the more obvious it is that he hasn't. Real moving on happens in silence. It happens when someone takes the time to reflect, to grow, to truly close one chapter before opening another. When someone is genuinely over you, they don't feel the need to put it on display. They just live their life. They focus on their own journey, their own self-improvement. But when they jump straight into something new, it's a distraction, not a decision. It's running, not healing. And that's why you can't believe the illusion. You might think he's happy, that he's finally getting what he wanted, but happiness doesn't come from avoiding pain. It doesn't come from rushing into something out of fear. He may look fine on the outside, but inside, there's doubt. There's comparison. There's the constant thought of whether this new person can replace what he lost. And the truth? No one is ever truly replaceable. Every connection is unique. Every relationship carries a different weight. And deep down, he knows that. The worst thing you can do is let this illusion shake you. The moment you believe it, you give him power. You let his act dictate your emotions. But when you see it for what it is, a distraction, a mask, a desperate attempt to avoid reality, you regain control. You understand that his journey isn't yours. You stop letting his choices affect your mindset. You realize that real strength isn't in reacting, it's in knowing that his actions don't define you, knowing that what he does now is irrelevant to your future, knowing that this is all part of the process. Because one day, when the distraction fades, when the illusion breaks, he'll be forced to face the truth. He'll realize that moving on isn't about finding someone new, it's about truly letting go of the past. And when that moment comes, he'll think about you. He'll think about what he lost. And by then, you'll be so far ahead that it won't even matter. At first, it might seem like he's happy, that he's completely fine without you. You see him posting pictures, smiling, living life as if nothing ever happened. But that's the illusion he wants to create. People don't just erase emotions overnight. And if he's putting effort into making sure you see how great he's doing, it's not because he's genuinely moved on, it's because he wants you to believe he has. It's a tactic, a form of self-preservation, a way to prove to himself and the world that he's unaffected. But real healing doesn't happen in public, it happens in private. And behind closed doors, when no one is watching, the truth starts to creep in. At first, the excitement of someone new might feel like a fresh start for him. It's the distraction phase, the period where he's doing everything to avoid sitting alone with his own thoughts. He convinces himself that this new person is a better fit, that he's moving forward, but deep down there's doubt. No one can fully replace another person. Every relationship leaves a unique imprint. And when he's alone, when he's not caught up in the rush of new attention, that's when he feels the void. That's when he starts to realize that what he had with you wasn't so easily forgettable. He may not show it, but there are moments when he feels it. When he hears a song that reminds him of you, when he passes by a place you used to go together, when he says something and remembers it was a joke only the two of you shared. These are the cracks in the facade. The small moments that make him question whether this new situation is real or just a cover-up. The mind plays tricks, convincing us that moving forward is as simple as replacing someone. But emotions don't work like that. Feelings linger, memories resurface, and The more he tries to suppress them, the stronger they become. That's why silence is powerful. When you don't react, when you don't chase, when you don't give him the satisfaction of knowing you're hurt, you disrupt his expectations. He thought you'd break, that you'd reach out, that you'd try to fight for him, but instead you do the opposite. You let go. And that's when the tables start to turn. Because suddenly he's the one wondering. He's the one questioning why you're not reacting. He starts to wonder if he was the one who was just an option to you. And that thought alone begins to eat away at him. The moment he realizes you're truly gone is the moment his own emotions catch up to him. The distractions no longer work. The excitement of something new fades. He finds himself comparing, missing, regretting. And the more time passes, the clearer it becomes he lost something real. But by the time he comes to that realization, you have already leveled up, already moved forward, already created a new reality for yourself that no longer includes him. And that's the real victory. Not proving a point, not seeking revenge, but becoming the person who doesn't need to look back. Because when you reach that place, when you truly move on, you realize that his choices never determined your worth to begin with. You were never an option. You were the lesson. And now he has to live with that. There's a moment when reality hits him. And it's not when he's with someone new, enjoying the distraction of fresh attention. It's not even when he's out with friends, laughing, pretending everything is fine. No, it happens in the quiet moments, the spaces in between, when there's no one around to feed his ego, when he's alone with nothing but his own thoughts. That's when it starts to creep in, the realization that something is missing, that the comfort and connection he once had with you can't simply be replaced by someone new. At first, he convinces himself that it's just an adjustment period, that he just needs time to settle into his new situation. He tells himself that moving on is easy, that you were just another chapter, and now he's writing a new one. But the mind doesn't work like that. Feelings don't just vanish. And when he least expects it, something triggers the memories. Maybe it's a familiar scent, a song playing in the background, or even a casual conversation that reminds him of you. And in that moment, he realizes that the connection he's trying so hard to forget isn't so easy to erase. That's the problem with trying to replace someone too quickly. It's not about whether the new person is better or worse. It's about the fact that he never truly processed what he lost. And the more he tries to act like it doesn't matter, the more his subconscious fights back. He may not say it out loud, may not admit it to anyone, but deep inside, he knows that he's only delaying the inevitable. Because one day, the distractions will fade and the truth will be undeniable. He's still thinking about you. And here's the part that really changes everything. Your silence is what makes it worse for him. If you were reaching out, checking in, showing any sign that you were still emotionally invested, it would be easier for him. It would give him the validation that you're still there, still affected by him, still waiting in the background as an option. But when you disappear, when you remove yourself completely, he's left to sit with that emptiness. And that's when the panic sets in. He starts to question whether he made the right decision. He starts to wonder if you've moved on, if someone else has your attention, if you're happier without him. And suddenly, the confidence he had when he thought you'd always be an option starts to crumble. Because what if you were never waiting? What if you were never going to chase? What if you were the one who actually moved forward while he was the one left behind? That's when regret kicks in. The late night thoughts, the temptation to check your social media, the urge to reach out just to see if you'll still respond. But by the time he allows himself to acknowledge these feelings, it's already too late. Because by then, you've already detached. You've already embraced your own growth, your own evolution, your own peace. And nothing is more powerful than a woman who has realized she never needed him to begin with. And that's where the real shift happens. Not in proving anything to him, not in waiting for him to realize your worth, but in reaching a place where his reaction no longer defines your value. Because when you get to that point, when his actions no longer dictate your emotions, that's when you truly win. He thinks he has moved on. He tells himself that this new person is exactly what he needs, that she's different, that she's bringing something fresh to his life. And for a while, it seems like it's working. He looks happy on the surface, posting pictures, going out, keeping himself busy. Maybe he even flaunts it, making sure that if you see it, you'll think he's better off without you. But what he doesn't realize is that these distractions are temporary. The excitement of someone new, the thrill of a fresh connection, it only lasts so long before reality sets in. See, when someone jumps into something new without truly processing what they lost, they're not healing, they're avoiding. He might think that this new person is filling the void you left, but deep down, there's a difference between replacing someone and actually moving on from them. Right now, he's doing the former. He's trying to convince himself that because he's with someone else, it means he's over you. But the truth is, if he really was, he wouldn't need to prove it. It starts with the little things. He notices the way she reacts differently than you would, the way her presence doesn't bring the same comfort. Maybe she laughs at things that you never would, or maybe she doesn't understand his moods the way you did. And while he might not admit it, a part of him starts comparing. He thought a new person would mean a fresh start, but instead it only highlights what he's missing, because what he had with you wasn't something he could just replicate with anyone. And here's the part that really gets him. The more you stay silent, the more he feels it. If you were still reaching out, still showing that you cared, he could use that as reassurance. He could tell himself that you're still emotionally tied to him, that even if he's with someone else, he still has an effect on you. But when you don't respond, when you don't react, when you disappear completely, it forces him to confront something he's been trying to avoid. He might have lost you for good. And that's when he starts to wonder, does she miss him? Does she ever think about him? The way he catches himself thinking about her. Is she with someone else? Is she happier now? These questions creep in slowly at first, but they don't go away. In fact, they get louder. Because at the end of the day, it's not about whether or not you've moved on without looking back. Men have a way of pretending they're unaffected. They'll do everything they can to make it seem like they're in control, that they're the ones calling the shots. But when they realize that the one person they thought would always be there has truly left, that's when the weight of their choices begins to hit them. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in phases. First denial, then distraction, then comparison. But eventually the moment arrives where he has to face the truth. He underestimated what he had, and now he can't go back. That's the power of moving forward without looking back, because when you do, it forces him to see what he lost in a way he never expected. He thought replacing you would be enough, but now he understands some people can't be replaced. And by the time he realizes that, you've already built a life where his presence is no longer. At first, he convinces himself that everything is fine. He's with someone else now, so why should he care? He tells himself that this new chapter is better, that it's exactly what he needed. Maybe he even forces himself to believe it. But the truth is, when something isn't real, it starts to crack. And those cracks begin to show in the quiet moments when he's alone, when he's not performing for the world, when he's left with nothing but his thoughts. It always starts subtly. He catches himself thinking about you when he least expects it. Maybe it's a song that plays in the background while he's driving, one that reminds him of a conversation you once had. Maybe it's the way his new situation doesn't feel as effortless as what he had with you. He starts comparing, even if he doesn't want to admit it. He notices how this new person doesn't quite understand him the way you did, how their energy doesn't bring the same kind of peace. And then the frustration sets in. He starts looking for flaws in his new situation, searching for reasons to justify why he's feeling this way, because deep down, he knows exactly what's happening. He didn't actually move on. He just distracted himself. But distraction only lasts for so long before reality kicks in. He thought he could suppress what he felt by diving into something new, but now he realizes that nothing he does can truly erase what he lost. That's when regret creeps in. He wonders if he made the right choice. He thinks back to all the times he assumed you would always be there, that no matter what, you'd always come back. But now things feel different. You're silent, you're not reacting, you're not reaching out. And that's what makes it worse, because if you were still emotionally tied to him, he could hold on to that. He could use it as a way to convince himself that he still had some kind of control. But when you disappear, when you act like he never existed, he's forced to face a reality he never considered. Maybe you really don't need him anymore. And nothing bruises a man's ego more than that realization. Because as much as he pretended to be unaffected, as much as he tried to act like he was in control, the truth is he always expected that he could come back whenever he wanted. But now, for the first time, he feels powerless. He sees that you're not just gone, you've detached. And that's what haunts him the most. He'll try to fight it. He might reach out subtly, testing the waters, looking for any sign that you still feel something. Maybe he'll send a random message, something vague, something that doesn't directly address the past but is meant to trigger a reaction. Maybe he'll comment on something, trying to remind you that he's still around. But when he doesn't get the response he wants, when you remain distant, unbothered, that's when the weight of his choices truly hits him. And that's the moment he realizes that losing you wasn't just about losing a relationship. It was about losing the one person who truly saw him for who he was. He sees now that he didn't just lose someone who cared, he lost someone who understood him in a way that no one else ever has. And that's when he starts to crumble. Because the worst kind of pain isn't loud, it's silent. It's the kind that lingers in the back of your mind, the kind that keeps you up at night. It's knowing that you took something for granted, and now, no matter what you do, you can't undo it. And no matter how many distractions he tries to find, no matter how much he tries to convince himself that he's fine, he'll always know the truth. The moment he lost you was the moment he lost something he'll never be able to replace. At first, he thought he had it all figured out. He convinced himself that moving on was the best choice, that replacing you with someone else would make things easier. Maybe he even told himself that you were the problem, that this new person was an upgrade, that the past was just a lesson, not something to hold on to. But the mind doesn't work that way, and neither does the heart. No matter how much he tries to convince himself, no matter how much he pretends that everything is fine, there's one thing he can't escape: his own thoughts. It starts with the little things. He notices the absence of certain emotions, a kind of emptiness that wasn't there before. He expects to feel excitement, but instead, there's a lingering dissatisfaction. The conversations don't flow the same way. The chemistry isn't effortless. He tries to ignore it, tries to tell himself that this is just how things are, but deep down, he knows something is missing. And then one day it hits him, he's chasing a feeling he can't recreate. Because that feeling wasn't just about being with someone, it was about being with you. And that's when the real frustration begins. He starts overanalyzing everything, trying to figure out why things don't feel right. He compares, even if he doesn't want to. He looks at the person next to him and realizes that they don't challenge him like you did. They don't inspire him the same way. He used to think that finding someone new would erase what he felt for you, but instead, it only highlights what he lost. And it eats at him. He won't admit it right away, though. His pride won't let him. Instead, he'll try to distract himself even more, going out, surrounding himself with people, chasing temporary highs. But the more he tries to escape it, the more obvious it becomes. The laughter feels forced. The excitement is temporary. And in the quiet moments, when there's nothing left to distract him, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. That's when the regret truly sets in. He starts thinking about the way things ended, replaying every moment in his mind. He wonders if he made a mistake. He remembers the times when you were there for him, the moments when you believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. He sees now that what he had wasn't just a relationship, it was something deeper, something rare. And now, it's gone. And what makes it worse is that you're not chasing him. You're not trying to remind him of what he lost. You're not giving him the satisfaction of knowing that you still care. And that's what breaks him the most. Because as long as you were still attached, as long as you were still reacting, he could convince himself that he had time. But when you go silent, when you disappear completely, that's when reality hits him like a punch to the gut. He'll try to suppress it. He'll tell himself that he's fine, but the signs will start to show. He'll become more irritable, more impatient. He'll look for ways to fill the void, but nothing will feel quite right. He might even try to reach out, just to see if you're still there, just to test the waters. But when you don't respond the way he wants, when you remain unbothered, indifferent, that's when he realizes he's truly lost you. And nothing terrifies him more than that, because losing someone isn't always about them leaving, it's about them moving on. And when he sees that you've not only moved on, but have also elevated yourself, grown stronger, become even better without him, that's when the regret becomes unbearable. He realizes that while he was busy trying to replace you, you were busy becoming the person he always feared you would be. Someone who no longer needs him. And that's the moment he understands the true cost of his choices. He thought he could walk away and never look back. He thought he could find something better. But now he sees that he didn't just lose you, he lost the version of himself that he was when he was with you. And no matter how much he tries to deny it, he'll always feel that loss, because some things can't be undone and some people can't be replaced.